Part 1. This is the last day of the life I imagined for myself. I woke up 2 minutes before my alarm went off, like usual. 5:58 and bing. Eyes wide open, ready to greet the day. I've never had a hard time waking up in the morning. Never used the snooze button either, not once in my life. Sobriety helps. I don't drink. Discipline helps, too. I was born with spades of discipline. I'm practically overflowing with it, which is why I think I've never had that much trouble with anything in my life. Not motherhood, nor marriage, nor building a business, nor serving him. All of it appeared to me as a series of tasks to be accomplished each day, at the right time, in the correct chronological order. I know it's not that easy for other people, but it really is for me. That's why all those strangers like me so much. That, and the money. The money definitely helped too. It was winter time. January. A cold front had just blown through the pass. By my bedroom window, the radiator was puffing hot air. The sky outside was deep as death black, and would be for another few hours. Our farm was nestled in the rolling deserts between two mountain ranges in Idaho, which meant we didn't see the sun until 9 or so in the winter months. We were located 5 miles down a long, winding gravel country road. Not even airplanes flew overhead. In the darkness, I listened to the distant mooing of Sassafras, our beloved dairy cow. I could tell by the pitch and register of her moans that my husband, Caleb, was milking her. Right on time. The man was good. My husband was not disciplined before he met me. He was the youngest of 5 boys, the runt of the litter in an American dynasty. His father was the latest senator in a long line of U.S. senators currently barreling through a presidential bid, 3rd time's the charm. His mother was a homemaker who had spent most of her life drowning in Chardonnay. Together, through a near-fatal combination of paternal neglect and maternal sympathy, they had raised Caleb to be soft and spoiled and sweet. But the only thing more valuable than a person with God-given traits is a person who's willing to learn, and my husband, that man, had been willing to learn. And who was I? A flawless Christian woman. The manic pixie American dream girl of this nation's deepest, darkest fantasies. Mother every woman wanted to be, and the wife every man wanted to come home to. Like a nun in a porno. It didn't make sense, but also, by God, it worked. My name is Natalie Heller Mills, and I was perfect at being alive. In the silences between sassafras near human groans of pleasure, sometimes I joked online that my husband had a bovine mistress. Ha ha! I could just hear the distant chicken coop chatter, that meditative bok 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 that served as the white noise machine of our farm. I loved our chickens. They were as domesticated as dogs, as harmless as toddlers. Sometimes I went out to the coop just to sit with them. I liked to stroke their silky necks, let them peck softly at the feed in my cupped palms. We'd be killing them soon. In the darkness, my mouth watered. I'd been yearning lately for fresh bone broth. Once you've made it from scratch, the store-bought kind tastes rancid. Through the open crack of my bedroom door, there was a spilling of little boy laughter. The children were down the hall having breakfast. I closed my eyes, felt the rhythms of my house like a heartbeat. Nanny Louise, a godsend for our family, was at the stove, making pancakes. Producer Shannon, my right arm, was by the kitchen sink, getting the video equipment prepared for a long day of work. Stetson and Samuel, my darling young men, were sitting at the table, shoving and pulling one another in equally groggy measure. Clementine, my eldest, the girl who made me a mother, was at the head of the table, ignoring her brothers, reading a book. Nanny Amy, our second in command, was moving through the far corners of the house, waking up each of the littles, kissing sleepy eyelids, tugging my 2 toddlers gently forward into the day. She would bring one to the kitchen, hand her over to Nanny Louise, and go back to get the other. I closed my eyes and whispered my daily thanks to the Lord for everything he had provided me. Thank you, Father, for Caleb. Thank you for the inheritance. Thank you for Clementine, Samuel, Stetson, Jessa, Junebug, and the little angel we haven't named yet. My hand moved instinctively to my stomach, resting at the height of the curve. I was 32 years old. 6 months pregnant with our sixth child. It had been the easiest pregnancy to date, though all my pregnancies, relatively speaking, had been smooth. I was born to be a mother. I never felt more connected with him than when I was tasked with carrying one of his creations. Do you see what I'm saying? Perfect. Beneath my palm, my baby girl rolled slowly to her side. My little sea creature. I loved her so much. Thank you for watching over the farm animals, Lord, and thank you for helping us pass 5 million on Instagram this week. We're only a few souls away from 1 million on YouTube, Lord. It's through your will, and your will alone, that I have reached so many hearts and minds. It's in your name that I work to spread your truth. A wave of nausea passed over me, and I suffered beneath the shadow. Sometimes it actually made me sick, how perfect my life was, and how good I was at living it. On the bedside table, my phone sputtered awake. I reached over and silenced it, then threw off the sheets and got up. We hadn't always had this much help. For the first few years, it had been us and the kids and the farm. When I became pregnant with my fourth, we hired Nanny Louise. When I was pregnant with my fifth, I hired Nanny Amy, and shortly after that, we hired producer Shannon. What we had now, in terms of help, was more than enough for the time being. It allowed me to be present with both my children and my followers in all the ways I wanted to be at all the different points throughout the day. That's the thing about being a mother and a wife and an influencer, all at the same time. It's basically like breastfeeding 3 babies simultaneously. Like seducing 3 lovers at once. Why don't you ever show all the help you have behind the scenes? We love our employees like their family, so we go to great means to protect their privacy as they've requested. I wouldn't be able to forgive myself if my social media account ended up compromising them in any way. When I stepped into the kitchen, producer Shannon was in the corner, fiddling with a tripod, and my 4 oldest children were eating breakfast at the table, each wearing a thick wool sweater. Nanny Louise was helping Jessa, our 3.5-year-old, as she poured orange juice into her glass. I can do it myself, Jessa whined. Nanny Louise, who also served as our homeschooling teacher, nodded and said, "Of course you can. Look, why, you're doing it right now. All by yourself. Big girl." Jessa grinned, the verbal pronouncement of her autonomy enough to make her forget how Nanny Louise's hands never left the cup. "Big girl," she echoed. Nanny Louise tipped the glass, and my little girl drank greedily. I watched with approval as the pulp dripped down her chin. The orange juice was homemade. The tutorial would go online later this week. "Good morning," I said to the room. 5 heads swiveled toward me. A chirpy chorus of "Morning, Mama" came in reply. I made my way around the table, kissing each perfect cheek, ruffling each perfect head. All my children, even the boys, wore their hair long. The girls looked just like me. Freckled, narrow faces, soiled dark hair, expressions prone to penetrating seriousness. Catch one of us in a pouting moment, and you'd be forgiven for summoning images of some 16th century martyr on a hunger strike. As for the boys, they looked like Caleb. Ruddy cheeks, big toothy smiles. When they were all walking in a group, and they often were, the boys worshipped Caleb. They made me think of a trio of politicians in lockstep, scouring the land in search of babies to kiss. I rarely paid attention to the differences in the children. Both the girls and the boys spoke similarly, laughed similarly. Their clothing was a rainbow of neutrals. The same pile of olive and tan and ochre had been tumbling down our growing family tree for over a decade. It's amazing how long good cotton can last. I walked over to my 2 boys, Stetson and Samuel. Stetson was 8 years old, a full year younger than Samuel. But as of last summer, the boys were the same height, same weight. With their shoulder-length hair and the way they seemed to do everything, run, play, do chores, shovel food into their mouths. In jerky, awkward-limbed unison, they reminded me of a pair of dressage ponies. I rested a hand on either head as they ate their cereal with little boy gusto, felt their skulls move around beneath my palms like possessed bulldozer levers. "What's on the docket for today, boys?" "Need to build a new enclosure for sassafras," Stetson said, mouth full. I said. "Very important. Papa will love the help. Papa said I could use the nail gun." Samuel shoved Stetson. knocking the spoonful of cereal out of Stetson's hand and sending it clattering to the floor. "It's my turn to use the nail gun." "You'll both use the nail gun," I said. "Nanny Louise." She nodded, wiped the pulpy juice from Jess's cheeks and chin, then got up to clean up the mess. People refused to believe my babies were as amenable as they appeared online. "There's no way this is their actual life," the angry women would write. That's what Caleb and I called them. The angry women. To which I would reply, absolutely nothing, of course. The mother's main task is to protect her children from the world. There is no need for some hateful witch in Manhattan to see how physical Samuel got with his brother. And even his sisters sometimes. No need for them to witness Stetson's daily tantrum over arithmetic. I loved that boy. But he had not been gifted with a standard helping of brains. If the angry women found out about any of my children's failings, they'd go crazy with bloodthirst. They'd also be devastated. None of them realized it, of course, but they needed me as much as I needed them. It was a symbiotic relationship. I was a shark, and they were 5 million tiny fish, nipping at the nutrients along my belly. Little idiots. They were desperate to eat me. They had no idea I was the one who was keeping them alive. How does it feel to know that millions of people around the world know intimate details about your children? I show only very selective moments of my children's lives. And besides, none of them have any access to screens. Have you seen the studies, by the way, of what screen time does to children's brains? If you ask me, my children are much better off in this household, where they occasionally show up in videos from my account, than in some other household where they'd be staring at an iPad all night. I mean, really. Sympathetic cluck. It's an epidemic. So sad. You should look into that. You're up early, I remarked to producer Shannon as I poured my coffee. Couldn't sleep, she said. She was frowning at one of the knobs on the camera, twisting it one way, then the other, a grumpy expression on her face. When Shannon first showed up at the ranch, she was 19 years old, a Barnard dropout with pink hair and a nose ring who was willing to do professional work at a student rate. Now she was 21. The nose ring remained. The pink hair had been abandoned in the name of her natural brown. I wasn't sure if that was an indication of any personal identity shift, so much as a practical acceptance of the realities of living an hour away from the closest city. Not exactly many options when it came to qualified hair colorists near a 500-acre farm. I paused, then said delicately, "Are you having those dreams again?" She looked at me. "Who told you about that?" In the dreams, Shannon stood on the nearby hillside, watching the farm burn to the ground. The house, the chicken coop, the gardens, all aflame. Car-sized balls of fire raining down from the violet heavens. As the fire spread across the fields, she would run, or try to run, while the barn collapsed, the animals screaming in the rubble. Sometimes she could see us in the distance, waving to her, saying something, and sometimes, when the dream lasted this long, she could see beams of light shooting down from the heavens, shining grace onto my children and Caleb and me, saving everyone but her. "Nanny Louise is worried about you," I said, which was more diplomatic, I thought. The Nanny Louise is sick of being startled awake in the middle of the night by screaming. All our farm employees lived in a set of rooms above the stables, next to the homeschooling classroom. "I'm fine," Shannon said. "It's no big deal." She leaned past me to plug in a battery charger. For a moment we were silent, standing side by side in the small corner of the house where we spent nearly all our waking hours together. "You might just have the most beloved kitchen in America these days. Can you tell us a little bit about it?" "Oh gosh, where do I even start?" Through the camera's discerning eye, the cooking space was perfectly cluttered. A half-filled mason jar of water here, a flour spill there, a few forgotten flower stems strewn across a worn-looking cutting board. It looked like a space where a mother worked, like a kitchen in the real world, only obviously better than anything the real world had to offer. People think they want minimalism. They think they want a house absent of stuff, when in fact a perfectly uncluttered home makes them want to kill themselves. A space must always look lived in for someone to want to live in it. This is a completely obvious notion, when you take a moment to really think about it. But most people don't take a moment to really think about anything. Most people are morons. Another bonus of this area of the kitchen was that it was right next to a long row of windows, So the light, once the sun rose, was a perfect, soft, bright, at any hour of the day. Just standing near that kitchen corner made me look and feel a good 6 years younger. God-given plastic surgery, I called it privately, though I wouldn't dream of saying something like that online. The angry women would eat me alive. Have you ever had any work done? Laugh, laugh, laugh. God, no. I'm sorry. No offense to others who have. But me, personally, I would never. Shannon was looking blankly at the windows now, which seemed on these early winter mornings to offer a portal into a world shrouded in black. I knew she was thinking about the dreams. It was clear she didn't even have an inkling of an idea of what they meant. How could she be so dense? God was clearly trying to reach her in about as direct a way as he could. He was sending smoke signals and carrier pigeons and writing messages to her in the sky, and she was ignoring all of it. She'd probably schedule a call with some scam artist dream interpreter before she even considered that her brain might be offering her a non-metaphorical insight. It was a shame to watch her totally bypass revelation, but not exactly surprising. Shannon's partially Barnard-educated brain was a blunt instrument, secular and smooth. It was about as suited a tool for speaking directly with God as a pair of rubber spatulas were for open-heart surgery. And why might the Lord want to reach Shannon so badly? Well, Shannon had misbehaved. Shannon looked up at me, and our eyes locked. My cheeks flushed for having been caught staring at her with such an openly judgmental look on my face. By the way, she said, my new phone arrived today. Thanks again for letting me do the rush shipping option, of course. One of the children had dropped Shannon's phone into a puddle, apparently, a week earlier. And because I was such a good boss, I'd remedied it immediately, handing her the company card to order a new one along with a little light-hearted joke. Wouldn't want you to be stuck out here without access to the real world. Weren't you going to wear the purple apron today? Ah, I said, and laughed. Whoops, pregnancy brain. I hated that phrase, pregnancy brain, but it was an excellent way to sound relatable. The apron I was wearing was a dark navy. We were using these videos to announce a new shade option for the aprons on our online store. $35.99, 100% cotton, buttons made of recycled plastic, made in Spain. I'll go get it now. As I left the kitchen, Nanny Amy walked in with my toddler, Junebug. Jessa got up from the table, her glass empty now, and trailed whimsically after me like a dandelion puff. She grabbed Junebug's hand as she passed, and soon both nannies were calling plaintively after the little girls as they followed me up the stairs. It's fine, I called over my shoulder. They can come with me. It was a particularly special gift from our Creator, that we had been blessed with 3 girls in a row. All children were gifts from God, of course, but groups of girls, little jewelry sets of 2 and 3. That was something else altogether. A girl was lovely. A boy was nice. But girls, plural, were rainbows and fluff, personified. Radiant balls of delight. Such community-oriented creatures. With the addition of each new little lady to their little lady tribe, they all seemed to grow a little taller, glow a little brighter. They carried each other like dolls. They braided each other's hair. They picked and preened and poked at one another with motherly obsession. The boys would keep us fed when we were old and feeble, I like to say. But the girls, they would dance around our wheelchairs, toss rose petals over our graves. Plus, I'll admit it, they were easier to train. The boys occasionally resisted or got frustrated or bored, but not the girls. They could perform on film for hours without complaint, just like their mama. Mom. I winced instinctually, then rearranged my expression into softness. Yes, honey. I was standing in front of my bedroom mirror, fixing the new apron, and my eldest daughter, Clementine, was standing in the doorway. She had turned 12 over the summer and promptly stopped calling me Mama a few days after. It made my eye twitch each time I heard her say Mom. I hated the word. It was such an ugly sound, so short and masculine, far much less musical than my preferred alternative. I didn't fight it, though. Clementine was a preteen, which meant she was testing me. The worst thing I could do would be to push back. I watched through the mirror as Clementine crossed the room and sat next to the girls on my bed. What does tradwife mean? Record scratch. Who said that word to you? What? Is it bad? Tradwife, Jessa said and giggled. She threw her head back and said it again. Tradwife. It almost seemed possible Clementine might hear the mechanical clicks of my brain as it whirred into warp speed, sorting through 500 possible answers to that question. My eldest daughter was like me, not just in likeness but in disposition too. She held her intelligence like a knife behind her back. Now that she was creeping toward womanhood, I found our similarities a bit unnerving, like watching a clone of myself walk slowly toward me from a faraway point in the distance. What would happen when she arrived? I'm aware this isn't the kind of thing you're meant to feel about your own daughter, but motherhood is its own kind of curation, which is to say, every woman I know lied to me about what it would be like before I became one myself. If your children became influencers someday, would you be proud of them? I just want my kids to be happy. Big, gummy smile. I opted for casual ambivalence. The worst thing you can ever do is let a child know you care. I know that trad is short for traditional. Some people call women like me a traditional wife, for obvious reasons. By some people I meant the angry women. The angry women were the ones who called me a trad wife, who said trad like it was short for something evil, like traditional wasn't a fine word in any sane person's universe. But these women were not sane, nor were they happy, nor were they big believers in personal accountability. Instead of asking themselves why they spent so much of their precious time on Earth scrolling through other people's lives when they could be making their own home-cooked meals, or even offering eye contact to their own children, instead of asking themselves why they spent so much time bathing in their own rancid jealousy when they could be building their own lives into something they were proud of, they were apparently far more interested in drinking a bottle of wine Achna. I suppose I'm assuming that these women were winos, but judging by the number of typos riddled throughout each of their messages, I'd call it an evidence-based assumption. Tradwives were ruining the country by staying married second-er husbands, apparently. Tradwives were destory in America because they actually liked spending time with their children. To which I would comment, in one of the 6 rotating anonymous burner accounts I used online. Oh my goodness, heaven forbid. Before these women called me a tradwife, they had called me a religious zealot, a cult leader, a breeder. Compared to those names, tradwife seemed mild. I don't personally think celebrating traditions is bad, I said. Do you? The 2 littles shook their heads. No, Mama. We love you, Mama. But Clementine just stared at me. So you're saying you are one? I felt suddenly like I was being deposed for a lawsuit. Clementine, why don't you just tell me who told you I was a tradwife? No one, Clementine said. In a flash, she was bored. I was just asking a question. Geez. As she stood up, I faced my reflection again, busying myself with the apron bow. I wasn't smiling anymore. Tell Nanny Louise to look at the weather forecast, I said to Clementine. It might rain today. The children should wear boots. Clementine didn't respond, and by the time I turned back around she was gone. Nannies. It had to be the nannies. They were constantly leaving their phones on countertops and couch cushions, no matter how many times I told them not to. It was an overwhelming task, protecting your child from the world. Jessa and Junebug were still so young, so impressionable, but Clementine? Practically a woman now. She couldn't be trusted. Do your children enjoy being filmed? Oh, they love it. The plan for this content day was to make a boule with my famous sourdough starter, and to depict a nativity scene on the dough with herbs I'd personally picked from our garden. This was, excuse the pun, my literal bread and butter. Plus the holiday season always led to a major boom for our online store. Yesteryear Ranch Cherry Cutting Board, $120 made in Brazil. Yesteryear Ranch French Salt Blend, $45 made in France. Yesteryear Ranch patented indoor paint gallons in shades of Homestead, Pioneer, and Cowgirl, $80 per gallon, all made in America. The boule wasn't the main attraction so much as the gateway drug. Baby lavender Jesus in a rosemary manger, 3 wise times sprig men, fa-la and the follow-a, and the followers would click, 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 until their hearts and their online shopping carts were full. They would beg. They were always begging for more. The herb boule took 4 hours, a standard amount of time which would be clipped and snipped by Shannon into a 30-second time lapse, my fingers spinning dizzily around the screen, packing and kneading, caressing a lump of pale dough. The second half of the day was natural dinner. I was going to make a traditional Sunday roast, or should I say a trad Sunday roast. I planned to write in the caption, with a winky face, that would really drive the angry women up a wall. All the ingredients would be sourced from our very own farm, except for the beef itself, which technically came from the supermarket on the other side of the mountain pass. At some point in the early afternoon, we realized we were out of fresh eggs, so we decided to make a trip to the chicken coop. The sky and the mountains performed beautifully for us. I walked blissfully over to the coop, Jessa and Junebug clinging to my skirt as we mucked along in the mud, and said hello to our ladies, which is what I called the chickens whenever I was being filmed. The ladies. "Hello, ladies," I sang out. "How are y'all doing today?" Behind me, Shannon tripped on her video cord and swore loudly. "Sorry," she said. "Can you do that part again?" Of course I could. I could do any of it on command, 1,000,000 times over in 1,000,000 variations of sing-song. "Hello, ladies. How are y'all doing today?" "Perfect. Let's move on to a shot of the egg pickup," I say. Someone said from behind, "Is that Marilyn Monroe by the chicken coop?" It might as well have been. I rolled my eyes and laughed, had a single moment to smooth my skirt and pray that Shannon was still filming before Caleb strode into the coop, grabbed me by the waist, and dipped me low. He kissed me while our daughters cheered. Then he lifted me back up, grinning as I slapped him playfully on the shoulder. "You got my boots all dirty. Little dirt never killed anybody." He tipped his cowboy hat to me and winked. I laughed and rolled my eyes again. "We're filming, Caleb." As if he didn't know. "Actually," Shannon said, "we're not." I paused right before Caleb spoke, "So you guys are good. If you want to take a quick break, I can go have some coffee." "Oh," I said, crestfallen. "Okay. Well, we don't actually have to." But Shannon was already trudging away with the camera, walking quickly toward the house. Caleb patted my behind twice, gently. As we watched Shannon throw open the front door with an unnecessary amount of force, he said, "She still upset?" A surge of emotion rolled through me. "Yes, Caleb. She's still upset. Well, she'll feel better soon. When we—" I looked at him, and he fell silent. "You don't understand women at all." He was about to reply, and I was about to cut him off with an even sharper statement, and then both of us seemed to realize at the exact same time that we were being watched. Jessa, Junebug resilient. Little girls, sweet things, peering up at us. Watching, always. Where the hell was Nenny, me? No matter. It was good practice anyway. That was what I told myself when I found myself under surveillance by a child who should have been under surveillance by someone else. It's good practice. A flawless performance, after all, does not arrive overnight. It takes years and years and years of practice. I leaned forward on tiptoes and kissed Caleb twice, in quick succession. "Get back to work, cowboy." The girls laughed and clapped, and I flushed from the reward. Caleb tipped his hat to the three of us and strode back toward the barn, where he would probably spend an hour or two messing around with the organization of some hay bales. Caleb was very good at keeping himself busy. He was also very good at only ever doing the farm chores that he actually enjoyed: milking sassafras, driving the big John Deere tractor around in tight donuts in the pastures, staying up all night with a laboring sow. As for the chores he didn't enjoy, cleaning, planting, picking, mucking out the stalls, he left all that to the ranch hands. Hold on. You have ranch hands too? Pause. Did I not mention those before? Shit. Consider mentioning pregnancy brain. We have 2 or 3 usually. Just seasonal work. Depending on what's going on at the farm. We need as much help as we can get. But why didn't you? Pregnancy brain. The filming for Natural Dinner ran late. All throughout the house moods went sour. The only board game allowed in our house by explicit demand of my father-in-law. It was important, Doug said, for children to learn the value of a free market as soon as possible. The nannies. Oh, the nannies. They tended to veer toward uselessness during this time of the day. From Nanny Amy, I expected as much. She was a dumb girl from Los Angeles with a perfectly symmetrical face, capable of keeping the kids alive, and not much else. But from Nanny Louise, who was 5 years older than Nanny Amy, and had a master's degree in education, I expected more. She was like family to us. Did you just say your nannies are like family? Silence. I'm sure you can understand that there's a long and controversial history of white women calling the people who worked for them family. Longer pause. Soft, knowing smile. No, that's not right. Soft, unknowing smile. Better. Next question, please. Ladies, can I speak with you for a moment? The nannies looked up from their phones. Clementine has been using someone's phone unsupervised, I said. She asked me what a tradwife is today. Well, Nanny Amy said, then paused. I trained my smile on her. What? I mean. Another pause. She looked like a muppet with a gummed-up jaw. I resisted the urge to step forward and work her mouth open myself. We'll be more careful moving forward, Nanny Louise said. She gave Nanny Amy a sharp look, the visual equivalent of a kick beneath the table, and Nanny Amy nodded. Yep, she said. Won't happen again. I took a deep breath, sighed my anger out. Can you both handle dinner prep tonight? I was thinking about making a little trip to Target. In my periphery, Clementine perked up. Right on cue. It was a rare gift of decadence when I took the girls with me to the super Target 30 minutes away. At the Starbucks inside the store, Clementine ordered a frappuccino with extra whipped cream, and I bit my lip about having so much caffeine and sugar this late in the day. I got Jessa and Junebug each a cake pop and an apple juice, and then a non-fat decaf cappuccino with oat milk for myself. I tried to limit these trips to once a month. Usually Nanny Amy went out to pick up our groceries for us. But it was nice, even for me, to come here occasionally and float along beneath the mind-numbing fluorescence, though I will say it amazed me that so many people came here on a weekly basis. Spending more than 30 minutes at Target made me feel like I was nursing a cavity. As I pushed the cart slowly down the main aisle, the girls trotted forward and behind me in haphazard loops, hopping from distraction to delightful distraction. The jewelry stands, the clothing racks, the shelves of body lotion in colorful packaging, tangerine and persimmon, and bubblegum, pink dottlegum. See how good the little things can feel, girls? See how thrilling a sugar high can be if you choose it consciously, after so many days of careful. Natalie. I paused, looked around, pretended to be confused, when really I was thinking, oh, Jesus Christ. Not you. Vanessa and I had gone to high school together. She'd been on the track team too, but had made varsity only her senior year, so we hadn't spent much time together. She was in nursing scrubs now, standing by 2 overflowing shopping carts, her preteen daughter glowering behind her with the same expression of profound disappointment that Vanessa had worn at every track meet. I glanced at the cart closest to me. Disposable razors, disposable tissue boxes, a half-dozen slices of chemical bloated ham wrapped in 3 layers of plastic. I could practically smell the stink of the landfill where all this stuff, all these products designed to be trash, would end up a month from now. Then I looked back at Vanessa, who was now frowning at me with the same sour expression as her daughter, and my heart softened with nostalgia. Poor thing. She'd never won a race in her life. It's so good to see you, I said. It's been, what, a decade? She sniffed, looked at my empty cart. I didn't know you came to Target. Of course I do. I'm human, aren't I? I turned my grin to her daughter. And who is this? Vanessa looked at her own daughter with a strange expression, like she was trying to see what she looked like through my eyes. This is Zoe. Zoe looked to be a few years younger than Clementine. If she recognized her own name, she didn't show it. She just stared at me, her expression a springboard of tight misery. And those ones, I'm guessing, are yours? I followed Vanessa's gaze to see Clementine crouched in the aisle ahead, flipping through a picture book while the little girls peered eagerly over her shoulder. A flush of pleasure ran through me, stronger than any artificial sugar high. Yes, those are my girls. The oldest is Clementine, and the younger ones are Jessa and Junebug. When I turned back to Vanessa, she was smirking. When was the last time I'd seen a grown woman smirk? You know, I really admire your commitment to the olden days with those names. My smile shrank by an inch. Here we go. Vanessa had grown up in a strict, devout family, much stricter and more devout than my own, but she'd since emancipated herself from her parents, and now liked to write long-winded diatribes about her terrible upbringing via Facebook statuses that garnered, on average, 3 to 5 likes a pop. Vanessa wanted the world to know she was modern now. She'd changed. She ate organic, except when she got her groceries at Target, apparently. Self-proclaimed progressive women like Vanessa were chemically addicted to hating women like me. I knew that. I knew this woman got embarrassingly drunk at family parties and pulled up my Instagram page, showing anyone stupid enough to walk past that she knew this woman personally. She knew her in high school, before launching into some recycled slur of a speech about how all traditional people are idiots, all religious people are idiots, all religious people are idiots, all people who choose to live a different lifestyle than hers are idiots. People who choose to live a different... Women like Vanessa, with their expensive latex foreheads and their I'm with her bumper stickers, they didn't know what they wanted. They couldn't possess a truly principled stance even if someone injected it straight into their faces. Lord knows they couldn't take responsibility for their own lives. So they blamed their unhappiness on me. The dumb, ignorant, backward-thinking tradwife. Never mind the fact that I graduated in the top 3 of my high school. Never mind that I got straight A's at Harvard, studying global religious history while Vanessa ping-ponged her way through the ruins of the club rugby house at Michigan. Yes, I'll admit, I checked in on her Instagram from time to time too. Never mind the fact that I live my life actually adhering to all the principles they love to virtue blast on Instagram. Eat local. Support small businesses. Reduce waste. The angry women could say what they wanted, but facts were facts. I was a woman of principles. A woman defined by principles. No amount of money in the world could have gotten me to take a nibble of the cancerous ham in that Tetris-packed cart. No amount of smooth-brained social acceptance could have gotten me to name my daughter something so toothlessly trendy, something that so desperately shouted, "Pick me," as Zoe. Couldn't it? Sorry, Lord. My anger was getting the best of me these days. It was a problem that needed to be fixed, and I planned, I really did, to fix it. If I'd had a little more time, I swear I would have fixed it. It's wonderful to see you, I said smoothly. You should bring the kids over to the farm sometime. I peered down at Vanessa's sullen ogre of a daughter. I bet you'd love to see where ham comes from, wouldn't you? Vanessa let out a tiny moan, as intimate and shameful as an accidental fart in mixed company. Her face turned a bright shade of pink. I knew it was the kind of threaded offer that would catch in her molars. She would know the offer was half-hearted but still considered the possibility anyways, because Vanessa probably wanted to see my picturesque little farm in person more than she wanted anything else in her life. The chickens, my ladies. The big red barn which photographed so beautifully in any kind of light. The gardens. Oh, the gardens. The pseudo-erotic fantasy of us baking my signature lemon zest cake together, the two of us laughing at some stupid thing, our children playing peaceably together in the background. None of it would ever happen, and yet, the idea of that impossible day would sit there, growing bacteria in the back of her throat, for the next week, or month, or year. A profoundly humiliating desire, as strong and confusing an animal as the ones that inspired her to watch lesbian porn on low volume while her husband was sleeping next to her. She was definitely the kind of woman who watched lesbian porn on low volume while her husband was sleeping next to her. Grind away, Vanessa, I thought, smiling beatifically. Go ahead. Give yourself a migraine thinking about me. A notion so pleasurable it was worth the guilt that came wrapped up inside it, like a penny candy. She would think about my famous little farm for a year, and then she would bite the bullet and order one of my branded Dutch oven sets, $250 made in Taiwan, and she would mail it to a friend's house, one whose name I didn't recognize, so that I never found out that she personally gave me money. That's how much this woman hated me. That's how much she hated herself. "Say you'll come sometime," I said one last time, smiling wide. "Please, just say it." "Thanks," Vanessa said shortly. "I will." She looked like she'd swallowed a bottle of Advil. I beamed in reply. We said a few more pointless things, long enough for Vanessa to take a few more obvious glances at my body, noticing no doubt that the skirt hanging loose around my hips was the very same one I'd worn in school a decade earlier, and long enough for me to pointedly ignore her body altogether. Do I even have to say it? We said goodbye. As I turned the corner with my girls, Vanessa threw him a middle finger at my back. I didn't see her do it, but I felt her do it. I swear I did. And who could blame her? I had the life she always wanted, the life she still wanted but could no longer admit. Vanessa was liberated, sure, but I was happy. And it was such a shame, wasn't it? The way some women so willingly compromised every ounce of themselves in the name of building a life for themselves that they didn't enjoy. I passed Vanessa once more at the checkout line and gave a cheerful wave, but she didn't see me. She was bickering with her daughter over something in the cart. By this point, I'd regained my composure and felt nothing but pity for her again. What do your friends think of your success online? They're happy for me. Why wouldn't they be? Pity. I pitied her. But also, fuck her. Sorry, Lord, but really fuck her. By the time we reached the car, it was dark out, and I was practically spitting with fury. Vanessa, that bitch, was undoubtedly going to run home to post about me in one of those stupid, snarky online forums. Bet you didn't think someone like Natalie would shop at Target. And then I would have to suffer a whole week of online commentary, and Shannon. The nerve. The absolute, unbelievable nerve of that spoiled, uneducated, morally bankrupt little son of a... Breathe, Natalie. Just breathe. Clementine was in the back, buckling the girls into their car seats. I sat in the driver's seat, staring straight ahead, my hands flexed tightly on the steering wheel. I glanced down at my phone on the console. My temper settled. Yes, that would be nice. I could share the moment myself and take the wind right out of Vanessa's stupid little sails. I picked up the phone and pressed record, right as Clementine was getting into the passenger seat. "Girls," I said, smiling into the lit-up screen, "what did you get at our very special trip to Target today?" Jessa and Junebug squealed in response. "Stuffy, sparkly lotion. What about you, Clementine?" I angled the camera so it featured me, grinning, and Clementine's form in the passenger seat. Clementine had gotten a new shade of nail polish, but she didn't reply. She was facing away from me. "Clementine, what did you get it?" "Stop filming me." I froze. My face flooded with heat. She'd never done that before. Not once. I glanced quickly in the rearview mirror. Jessa was playing with a bracelet on Junebug's wrist, Junebug babbling quietly about the new stuffed animal. I pressed the button to stop recording and set the phone face down in my lap. My hands were shaking. I threw the car into drive and we rolled toward the parking lot exit. "I didn't know you were unhappy being filmed, Clementine," I said as we rolled onto the quiet mountain highway toward home. "I've always told you to tell me if you felt that way, haven't I?" I hadn't. Clementine rested her forehead against the window. "I'm telling you now." "Fair enough," I said. None of the girls were looking at me anymore, and yet for some reason I was smiling. "Stop it," I told myself sharply. "Stop smiling like that." But I couldn't. I didn't. When it comes to consent, do you think children are capable of... Oh, please. Pause. Can I finish my question? Longer pause. Yes, of course. When it comes to consent and the use of children's likenesses on public social media accounts, actually, I need to take a quick break to use the restroom. Would that be all right? Later that night, Caleb walked into our bedroom and said, "I spoke to my dad again today." "Oh?" I was reading my emails, mass deleting spam messages, while the nannies got the children ready for bed. At that moment, a new email pinged my inbox. It was from Shannon. The subject line read, "Formal resignation." I paused, stared at the subject line for a few moments. Then I clicked on it. Natalie, I'm writing to let you know that I won't be working for you any longer. Between what happened over the summer and all the nightmares, it's clear that this job isn't good for my mental health any longer. I've got a bus ticket for later tonight. I don't need a ride. Nanny Amy is going to drive me to the station. For what it's worth, I don't think you're a bad person. I think you're just confused. Please tell the kids I love them. In an P.S. I'm sorry for screwing up your content calendar. Natalie? Hello, anyone there? Sorry, I said. I need to look at something quickly. Give me 1 sec. I read the email a second time, then a third. Then I looked at Caleb. What were you saying? Is everything okay? I laughed a bit too brightly. Just silly publicity emails. Now, please, I'm all ears. Tell me about your father. Well, he said. He paused dramatically. Drum roll, please. He thinks that now's the time. I nodded impatiently. I already knew what he was going to say, before remembering this was meant to be the grand reveal. Play along, Natalie. Say your lines. Now's the time for what, darling? I knew exactly what was coming. In fact, I had seen all this coming. My father-in-law's political push for Caleb, Shannon's letter of resignation, had arguably orchestrated it myself. But still, I found myself unaccountably shocked that it was finally happening. Here we go. The dominoes are starting to fall. And yet, how dare she? I suppose it was the tone of the email that got under my skin more than the email itself. Such full maturity, dripping with unearned condescension. Exactly the kind of letter you would expect from a 21-year-old. Exactly the kind of letter I would have expected from Shannon in particular. That lost little lamb. That stupid little bitch. Sorry, Lord. Sorry. Now's the time to run, Caleb said. For office? Oh my gosh. Wow. Caleb's father wasn't just a senator. He was a bona fide political icon. He'd been in office for 4 decades, running uncontested every 6 years. He was a war veteran, a family values traditionalist, the kind of guy people described with abject sincerity as a real-life John Wayne. They weren't wrong. Doug Mills was broad-shouldered and confident, the ultimate patriarch. Nearly every comment he made to another man was accompanied by a hearty clap on the shoulder. He was, if the polling was even remotely accurate, about to become the next president of the United States. He was also my closest ally. What my father-in-law and I both knew, there was no otherwise. There was only this plan, a very delicate one, in which 2 variables, my producer, my husband, were taken care of in one fell swoop. Final question, Mrs. Heller Mills. Would you like to comment on these horrific allegations of assault at Yesteryear Ranch? Unfortunately, I can't comment on an ongoing legal investigation. I would just like to pause here and say, another woman would have cracked years ago. I don't think you're a bad person. A bold thing to say to the wife of the man you've been fucking. That was the word I was looking for. Bold. The whole email was so hair-raisingly bold that it might have caused another, lesser woman to have a complete nervous breakdown, to throw her phone across the room, to hiss at her stupid, useless, can't keep his dick in his pants husband. Look what you've done. Not me. As I stared at my philandering moron of a husband, I gave myself a mental pat on the back for all the work I'd done over the years to harden myself against the world. We were facing down the barrel of our first PR disaster. I could already see the headlines. Allegations royal, insta-famous family. Even worse, is Natalie Heller Mills a cult leader? Former producer speaks out. Would a headline like that ruin a nascent political career? Assuredly not. America didn't care one iota about morality when it came to politicians. If anything, we expected them to be a little sleazy. It might improve the odds for my coddled husband in the heartland. Might even give me a boost in followers, too. That poor pregnant woman, doing her best to keep her family together. Really, if you think about it, this whole situation would make for a hell of an Instagram post. But I was getting ahead of myself. There was no need to think about that now. No need even to tell Caleb about the email just yet. This was not the kind of thing my husband was capable of dealing with. Not the kind of thing who, despite his best efforts, still wore his masculinity so roughly and unnaturally, as if it were an ill-fitting sweater I'd forced over his head, would be able to fix. If he knew, he'd only make it worse. He'd do something completely idiotic like drive to the bus stop and beg for forgiveness from Shannon in front of a crowd of strangers. "I think it's a great idea," I said, exactly like I'd practiced. "I bet you'll be president one day, just like your dad." Caleb's face lit up in relief. He would never admit it. He'd spent half his life running away from it. But this was the only thing he'd ever truly wanted, to be just like dear old Dad. "Now," I said, "let's pray on it." We kneeled together at the foot of the couch. I pressed my forehead into my clasped hands and tried to breathe the anger out of me, but I couldn't. It was like a germ. It just kept replicating in my stomach. Usually my husband's failures were easy to forgive, but tonight I wanted to kill him. I could practically see his insipid prayers float past me in little Comic Sans thought bubbles. "Please keep my kids safe, Lord, along with the chickens. Help my wife continue to love me. A blowjob would be nice, Lord, and if it's not too much, I'd like the strength to become something memorable. I'd like to become a legend." All men wanted to become legends. It was so embarrassing. And what I'd want? An easy answer. I wanted more of what I already had. I wanted the whole entire world to see itself through my eyes. A new level of influence. That's not the kind of thing you ask for directly, though, so I settled for something simpler. "Please let this plan work, Lord. Please don't let her win. And please give my husband a spine. I'm tired of needing to borrow mine." And Part 2. Was it a day, a week, a month? What I know is this. I wake one morning and think, Jesus fucking Christ, it's cold. Then, sorry, Lord. Cussing like some scummy teenager is not the ideal way to start a day. Still, it is cold. Colder than usual. And darker than usual. Calm yourself, Natalie. A little cold never hurt anybody. When my sister and I were little, it was a Christmas Eve tradition for my mother to tell us stories about our ancestors. How they came to America through Ellis Island, then crossed the West on horse and buggy, laying stake to the most fertile land they could find. The days of yesteryear were not for the faint of heart, my mother would drone on, a distant, romantic look in her eye. Think how brave your great-great-grandparents had to be. Imagine facing down Indians with arrows, defending your cattle from wolves, catching fish straight from the stream, drinking milk straight from the udder. Imagine girls trying to stay alive through the coldest, longest, darkest winters you can imagine, without even the dream of electricity to keep you warm. I'd started doing that with my own children, too, talking about the olden days as if they were something I could speak to, when the truth was I'd never been truly cold a day in my life. Until now. The power's definitely out. Why isn't the generator kicking on? Relax. But I can't. My thoughts are flowing quickly. I'm wide awake from the cold, making a quick mental list of the handymen we could call to fix the power, of whom I could possibly blame for this mishap. I should investigate the warranty on the generator. It's only 5 years old. And then finally I remind myself again to stop. Natalie, breathe. This is not the right time in the day to be thinking about chores. It's the time of day to ground my thoughts in spiritual gratitude, to center myself before the blessed chaos of another day. I give a little shiver shake of my head, try to start again. Thank you, Father, for Caleb. Thank you for the inheritance. Thank you for Clementine Samuel Stetson. I reach for our comforter to pull it tighter around me. Then I freeze. This is not my comforter. My fingers are not clutching the flannel linen hybrid duvet I bought the previous summer. Instead, I'm shivering beneath a stiff, thin quilt. Cautiously, I pull a hand out from under the covers and run my fingers across the surface, feeling what appear to be the thick tracings of hand-knitted designs. The first snake of fear slithers through me. "Caleb," I whisper. No response. If my body's clock is correct, and it always has been, every single day of my life, then it's near exactly 6 in the morning. Surely Caleb is already up and out of the barn, performing the daily milking. Surely this unrecognizable quilt is just some rag from the linen closet that the cleaner chose to use until our normal duvet was clean. So why hasn't my alarm gone off yet? Panic seizes me. I lurch for the bedside table, where I leave my phone to charge each night. My hands slap air instead of smooth walnut. I fall out of the bed and onto the floor, knees cracking painfully against the hardwood. I cry out in the darkness, then clap a hand over my mouth, suddenly terrified of making a noise. Fuck. Got it. Fuck. No. This time I don't pause to apologize to the Lord. There's no time to apologize. Slick knife thoughts are running through my brain, each one making me gasp a little in the refrigerated quiet. I've been abducted. Kidnapped. Someone must be here with me. Someone is going to kill me. I'm too young to die. Too beautiful to die. It's always the young, beautiful ones who die. Right as I'm about to pass out from fright, I hear something familiar, a ripple of children's laughter. I pause, cock my head at the sound. More laughter. Multiple children. Little girls, it sounds like. My girls. Then there's another whisper, an older voice, shushing them sternly. Clementine? Is that you? Then, another bright peal of laughter. A decade's worth of motherhood places that voice at 4 years old, maybe 5. Jessa? Junebug. I move into a sitting position on the floor, stare in the direction of the sound. Slowly my eyes adjust to the darkness. Soon I can see the faint outline of a door. Speak, I tell myself. Say something. Hello? Is anyone there? There's an immediate reply from the other room. Mama, we're having breakfast. A current of queasy relief flows through me. I stand up, ignoring all the sensory information. My feet are screaming upward to my brain. This frigid, knotted, lumpy floor is not your Brazilian imported hardwood. And walk toward the sound, trailing my fingers along the wall until I reach the door and find the doorknob, my doorknob, in the black. I open the door, exposing the dark hallway. This is my doorknob, and that was my quilt, and this is my house. It's cold because there was a storm and the power went out. Things feel different because it's dark and you're afraid, and everything feels different in the dark when you're afraid. I march forward through the hallway, which is dark but not as dark as the bedroom. I move quickly, trusting my instinctual knowledge of this house. I've spent so many evenings awake in the middle of the night in this home, so brain-dead and exhausted from round-the-clock breastfeeding that I might as well have been the actual Walking Dead. I know this house like I know myself. And with each correctly placed step, I become more relieved, and I walk a little faster. What a strange way to wake up, I think with a rising happiness. What a terrible dream. As I make the final steps before the turn into the kitchen, I think about how this would make for a good video later on in the day. Afternoon, y'all. Had the weirdest experience this morning. I'm sure all you hard-working mamas will understand. I turn the corner and step into the warm light of the kitchen and stop short. Ha! This is my home. This is not my home. I'm looking at my kitchen, which is also somehow not my kitchen. The size and layout and decorations are near exactly the same. The same dining table, the same chairs, the same wooden countertops, but the floorboards are wider and uneven, and there are no overhead lights. No light whatsoever, I realize slowly, except for the fireplace. In my house, the kitchen fireplace is non-functional. In this house, the flames pop and crackle in the cold, providing the only light in the room, illuminating the others. Sitting by the fire are my children, who are also not my children. 4 of them. 2 girls, 2 boys, all wearing raggedy-looking clothes that remind me of a pioneer reenactment. The oldest, a dark-eyed girl who looks to be a teenager, hair-pinned and plaited. She's like Clementine, but not Clementine. She's also the only one who isn't looking directly at me. She's braiding the little girl's head with perfect, unyielding focus. All these children look like they could be my children. None of them are my actual children. I take one step back, then another. A floorboard creaks beneath my feet. The older girl's eyes snap up and meet mine. I know fear. I have, on more than one occasion in my life, felt it so powerfully as to be crippled by it. A week before I was set to leave home for the first time to go to college, I was born again in my church. Right before the pastor dunked my head into the warm pool water, my knees buckled in fright. There it was, flooding through my body as the priest held me limply up by the armpits. A drowning sense of human inadequacy. A blank terror at what this world would become, if not for the saving grace he offered us. For those 3 seconds before I went underwater, I felt a complete and total clarity of how broken everything was. My life, my family, my country, my planet. We, all of humanity, were alone, weren't we? Was he even coming to save us? Or were we abandoned, stuck on this forsaken rock, spinning dizzily through the black toward nothing? Then I dropped beneath the water, and the fear fell away, and the warmth, the love, came tunneling through. I felt fear again when I was giving birth for the first time. I was 20 years old, in the hospital, and the nurses were offering banal little platitudes I could just barely hear over the sound of my own panicked gasps. "You're so strong, just a few more pushes now. You can do this, Mama." In the instant before my daughter came screaming into the world, I felt, for the second time in my life, a debilitating certainty of the wrongness of the situation. Mama? I thought. Who is Mama? I'm Natalie. My name is Natalie. I was not ready to be a mother. I felt this certainty in the deepest parts of my body, and so it seemed inevitable that he would intervene before this mistake of parenthood developed further. She's going to come out blue. Or maybe he was going to punish me in some other way. Caleb was going to slip and fall and hit his head on the corner of the bed. My mother was going to suffer a fatal car accident on the way to the hospital. A trade must take place for this life to enter the world. As my body slowly halved open like a peach, I realized it was me who was losing my life. Me who would vanish from the world to make room for this new child. I will never be Natalie again. I will only ever be Mama. For one single moment, I wished the child gone. Not just out of me, but out of this world. Ira said. Then the room was filled with her bellowing, and the fear fell away, and the love, or something like it, came tunneling back through. I thought I knew true fear. But this, what I'm feeling now, is not a fear I've ever known. The feeling inside me is big and black and bottomless. It feels like plummeting into hell. Mama, the younger girl says. She's small and freckle-cheeked, one half of her head braided neatly, the other half long and bedheaded, swinging by her waist. I've never seen her before in my life, and yet she says it again, that sacred call. Mama? She's the one who laughed and then who called for me. I stare at her, nausea roiling my insides. She is of me, and not of me. So close, so similar, and yet the dissonance sends my mind skittering out of control. I think of plastic dolls. I think of aliens and skin suits. I think, oh God, of my own children, taking off their own faces and handing them to strangers to wear like rubber masks. I let out a noise. It sounds like a moan. It feels like a gasp. And I finally think to say, "Who are you?" The children look at one another. "Mama," the young one says again. My voice rises in pitch. "Where am I?" "Oh," a little boy says. 8 years old, maybe 9. He looks like my Samuel, my Stetson, but he's neither. "It's us, of course," the older boy says. He looks to be about 13. "Barn," the oldest girl says. She's looking at me, but her hands are working of their own volition, braiding the younger girl's head with a force that makes my own scalp hurt. The little girl says nothing, just looks at me with big baby eyes while her head is yanked left, then right. "Go to the barn," the oldest girl says impatiently. I stumble across the room to the front door. My hand is wrapped around the doorknob when I see something and freeze. There, carved into the threshold of the front door, are notches and scribbles. Dozens of them. Names and numbers, positioned in a vertical line. A list. No, a record. At the doorknob's height, a series of particularly clear markings. Maeve, 1852. Maeve, 1853. Maeve, 1854. Height measurements. Which can't possibly mean. I follow the line of measurements, gaze traveling uneasily upward. By the first pane of window, Noah, 1853. Then by the second pane, Abel, 1854. And then, at exactly the level of my eyesight, a freshly notched entry. Mama, the carving reads, 1855. No, Alma. No. I rip open the door and step out onto the porch, stumbling down the stairs and taking a few steps into the darkness before I stop short. There it is again, a scene I recognize intimately, which slowly disintegrates into the uncanny, like an evil sister of nostalgia. There's the big red barn, and the chicken coop, and the sloping road that disappears over the backside of a hill. There's the world I built for myself, poring over every blueprint, taking years to get it totally right. Except. There are no driveway lights here. No lights above the entrance of the barn either. Everything is bathed in shadows beneath the still black sky. As my eyes adjust to the darkness, I see how the barn looks old and worn and unloved. The roof has a deep bow. The chicken coop is not the $30,000 technological marvel we bought years earlier, with an automatic door that opens and closes at sunrise and sunset to protect the chickens from foxes and mountain lions and bears. Instead, it's a small shed with a thatched overhang. Even the chickens look different in the dim moonlight. Thinner. Less friendly. Hello, ladies. My body is so flooded with cortisol I feel paralyzed. Oh, God. Help me. Natalie. I spin around. A figure is standing by the barn that is both mine and not mine. He begins to walk toward me, and suddenly the moonlight illuminates his face. It's Caleb. Unlike the children, who look like waxy versions of my own, this is my husband, with the soft face and the plaid shirt and the puppy dog eyes. I step back. He stops walking. The two of us stand there silent, about 10 feet between us. This man's eyes are not my husband's eyes. This man's eyes are black and cold and dead. The more I look at him, the more unfamiliar he becomes. He's Caleb, and then he's a distant relative of Caleb's, and then he is a stranger, an older man, staring at me in the dead of night. Distantly, I register how cold I am. I look down at myself, taking the strange nightgown I'm wearing, a floral, cotton thing I've never seen before in my life. Natalie, he says again. I think about running. My legs don't move. Wake up, Natalie. It's time to wake up. What's happening? I say. Where am I? Christ, the man mutters. He rolls his eyes, then throws his hat to the ground, making me jump and sending a small puff of dust into the cold air. You're home, Natalie, he says. Now, for the love of God, get inside before you catch a chill. Who are you? I'm your goddamn husband, he snaps. I'm Caleb. Maybe this is a dream. It's illogical like a dream. It's terrifying like a nightmare. But then if it's happening in my head, why are my knees aching so horribly from the fall out of bed? Why can I feel my lungs heaving in my chest, my terror vibrating through my body like something trapped and desperate to escape? Take me home. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. I have money. Lots of it. You probably know that, don't you? Is that why you took me here? Do you want money? Natalie, something snaps in me. Stop saying my name. He lets out an aggravated noise and begins to walk toward me again. If you're going to start shouting like that. Finally, my nervous system shifts into drive. I break into a run. As I fly down the road, I feel the whining strain of muscles gone soft, but I don't care. Now is not the time to worry about pulled muscles. Now is not the time to think about anything but flight. I sprint through the darkness, very distantly registering the pain in the soles of my feet as my skin is ripped apart by the gravel. Right as I begin to think ahead, whether the closest neighboring house is 5 miles away or 8, whether it would be smarter to run along the road, looking for a passing car, or to disappear into the woods, I trip and pitch forward and oof. My body skids and rolls. Just scrapes. Get up, Natalie. You can do this. Get up and run. On the other side of my fear. Shoes on gravel, coming closer. I'm gasping and rolling on the ground, trying to find my center of gravity, trying to place my palms flat on the earth so I can push myself back up and keep running. But the night sky is so black it looks like dirt, and the dirt is so black it looks like outer space, and I keep grabbing at air, and the air is filled with dust, and my vision is rolling, and I think to myself, get up, and I'm trying, Lord, I'm trying, but I can't. The footsteps disappear. Silence. I roll over onto my side, gasping, grabbing. Then I see the man standing a few feet away, watching me with a passive, unimpressed expression. Arms folded. Get up, he says, echoing my thoughts. Run, Natalie. Dawdle. Fight. Dot. I turn onto my side and scream. I tell myself to say help, but I'm not sure if I do. The noise of my own voice is too loud in my ears to discern any words. I see in my periphery the man drop to one knee. A fresh current of panic surges through me. He tries to gather me into his arms. I thrash my arms and legs. He leans forward and easily pins my arms down, then maneuvers my wrists, so he's holding both in one grip, his other hand free. In an instant, without any conscious thought, I spit into his face. This shocks him. He stares at me, cheek glistening in the moonlight as I wriggle desperately beneath him. Fuck you, I snarl. The first time I've ever said that phrase aloud in my life. The man wipes his face with the back of his sleeve. Then he says, a good wife doesn't speak to her husband that way. He rears back and slaps me so hard the whole world turns black. I was 17 years old when I left my family for the first time. I was going to college in Boston. Harvard University. Remember what I said about being disciplined? Yeah. By the time I was 12, I was practically running my weekly Sunday school lessons, while the actual teacher, some neighborhood dad who reeked of booze and liked to hit on the girls in the confirmation class above us, slept off his hangover in the back. Sharp as a tack, my father used to say about me, be careful, or you might get pricked. And then he would laugh, and laugh, and laugh. That's all I remember about my father. He died when I was 10. At least that's what my mother told my sister and me to say when we moved to our new town in the southwestern corner of Idaho, 4 hours away from where we'd grown up. Tell the teachers your father is no longer with us. You had to give it to her with that rhetorical sleight of hand. She wasn't lying. She hadn't committed a sin. He was, technically, no longer with us. With that phrase, my teachers would come to their own conclusions, and the conclusion would not be that Eliza Heller's husband had fled the state with a woman from his local bowling league. Now the works of the flesh are evident. Sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality. Even at a young age, my mother's logic checked out to me. Daddy's dead. So sad. May he rest in peace, I meant. My father was the kind of man who called a woman smart only when it worked as a beer-soaked punchline for his friends at a party. I'd be lying if I said I missed him, but I did what my mother said, because this was the world I was born into. A world where good Christian women moonlighted as crisis managers for their good Christian men. The rules were laid out at church service and Sunday school and over the dinner table each night. The job of a woman was threefold. Be a mother, be a wife, and keep the household clean. Oh, and don't forget to smile. And so I came of age in a small mountain town. No grandparents or cousins to speak of, with a single mother who steadfastly refused the best efforts of other women in church to set her up on dates, since she was technically already married. By day, she was a secretary at a local law firm. By night, she crocheted baby sweaters, socks, and hats for the women in our neighborhood. Since the families in our church popped out 5 to 9 children on average, business was always booming. The bills were always paid on time. My mother's carpal tunnel syndrome flared up monthly, but the pain, she said, was worth it for such a good American childhood. Even so, we were not the kind of household that could afford worldly luxuries like tuition, which is why when the full ride offer came in the mail, there was nothing my mother could say except, "Oh my." It was surprising to my mother that I wouldn't want to go to the honors program at our state university. Surprising, more generally speaking, that I would want to venture outward into the world, when the world so clearly had lost its way. Out in the coastal cities, nuclear families were an endangered species. Children ran barefoot in the streets while their fathers philandered in third-floor walk-ups, and their mothers smoked crack on the stoops. Some women didn't know they were women anymore. Some men didn't know they were men. The birth rate was plummeting. Humanity was self-immolating. The white race was going extinct. These were the prayers my mother sent to the Lord each night while I packed for school down the hall. Keep her safe, Lord. Lead her from temptation. Deliver her from evil. In the name of the Father, the Son, and Holy Spirit. At the airport, my mother and sister hugged me goodbye. Don't do cocaine, my sister Abigail said fearfully. She was 2 years older than me, with a heart-shaped face, wide Bambi eyes, and a crumb of a diamond ring on her finger. She was engaged to her high school sweetheart, a pimple-faced corn dog of a young man with a bad temper, Bryce. Together they were enrolled at the local community college. Abigail had no intentions of ever leaving our hometown, or of reading a book that was written by someone whose name was not Paul or David or John. Remember, Natty, my mother said, just remember to be kind. Her expression was bright with piousness, almost oily with it. She kept glancing around at the other Idaho families in the ticketing area, nearly all of whom were dressed like us, in long prairie dresses with hair braided down their backs, and nearly all of whom were larger than us by a factor of 2 or 3. Nearby, a woman led a line of 8 children to the baggage drop, a fat stack of passports in her hands, an expression of beatific exhaustion on her face. My mother watched them pass, her face almost naked with regret. In our community, a family with only 2 children was suspiciously small, the opposite of blessed. Well, what could you do? Her husband was no longer with us. Everyone believes in something, she said, still watching the family. You can reach anyone if you show them kindness. I know, Mother. Diane. Her attention snapped back to me. I'm serious, Natty. Be nice. I swallowed a hiss. I didn't want to fight, but it was a low blow for her to end the goodbye on this, the greatest shame of both of our lives. I was not, and had never been, a very social girl. I was polite and well-mannered. I was reliable and hard-working and clever. Concerningly so, my mother would say to women at church when she thought I couldn't hear. But extroverted? Not so much. Friends? Technically none to speak of. It's not going to be a problem, I said. I meant it, though not in the way I knew she would take it. This was, secretly, why I was going to Boston. I was going to a school and a city where intellect would matter much more than being likable. Bostonians, as far as I could tell from what I'd read at our desktop computer back home, were famously smart and famously uninterested in pleasantries. That kind of world was undoubtedly the one where I belonged. I hugged my sister and mother one more time. Then I gathered my bags and marched forward to the security line. As I inched along, I felt an urge to turn around and wave to my family one more time. But then I thought of Gomorrah, of what happens to women who look over their shoulders at the world they leave behind. The Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, destroying all those living in the cities, and also the vegetation in the land. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Don't look back, don't look back. What happened to the women in the Bible who looked forward, though? What about them? I couldn't remember, but there was something about the notion that felt instinctively wrong to me. It sniffed of greed and felt worryingly close to witchcraft. Do not turn to mediums or necromancers. Do not seek them out, and so make yourselves unclean by them. Best not to take the risk. And so I found a seat at my departure gate and stared pointedly at the carpet, determined not to look forward or backward until the flight attendants called for my group number, and the rest of my life began. 3 after Caleb and I bought the farm, we met with several architects and contractors to discuss a renovation. Most of them scratched their heads at our demands. The house on the property was from the late 1800s, but had been fully renovated just a few years ago. The windows were new, the appliances were new, the roof and the light fixtures and the floors were new. And now we wanted to renovate it. Again? You do realize this will cost $500,000, the first architect said. You do realize the resale value will be cut in half, the first contractor said. Are you both completely insane? The second, third, and fourth architect said. I wanted to feel like stepping into a time machine. I kept repeating in every meeting. I wanted to feel authentic. Authentic to what? One of the architects asked. Then I would add the 5 most important words in any business meeting. Money is not a concern. The 6th man we spoke with was the one we decided to work with. He didn't try to talk us out of any of our plans, nor did he raise his eyebrows when I listed my requests. I wanted the dishwasher and microwave and all modern kitchen appliances to be hidden from view. I wanted a clawfoot tub absolutely dripping in natural light. I wanted wide plank floors that felt like they'd been ripped straight out of the Mayflower herself. I wanted all the aesthetics of the olden times and all the amenities of modernity, and I wanted this seemingly irreconcilable set of desires to be somehow reconciled via a series of impeccable design decisions. As I spoke, this contractor, an older man who'd worked for decades in the area, took notes prodigiously. At each of my requests, he would nod and say in a quiet monotone, "We can certainly do that, ma'am." Right before the meeting ended, the contractor looked at me with a totally straight face and said, "Will you be wanting indoor toilets, ma'am, or would you prefer an outhouse?" I laughed stiffly. "Indoor toilets are fine. Great." He shut his notebook and looked at us. "Let's build you 2 a time machine. Welcome to the time machine." I'm lying beneath the covers of that god-awful quilt, curled in the fetal position. I have no idea what time it is. I've woken from what felt less like a nap and more like anesthetized surgery. My left eye socket is pulsing in a steady throb. The skin on my palms, forearms, and legs stings horribly. My feet don't hurt so much as they feel unnervingly warm, swollen with blood. My brain, too, is ringing and spinning in a way that makes me wonder if I have a concussion. "Wake up, Natalie." "Mama, we're having breakfast." "Go to the barn." A good wife doesn't speak to her husband that way. Oh. It's us, of course. I'm your goddamn husband. Mama 1855.war. It's hard to think right now. Literally. I can actually feel, the muscular effort of conjuring thoughts, as if every word is a rock I must find, and then pull from the mud. It must have been that man who carried me back to bed after he knocked me unconscious. Caleb, allegedly. An older version of my Caleb. Old Caleb. As I lie there on my side, I imagine him carrying me, touching my skin, tucking me into bed, doing God knows whatever else while I was passed out. It makes me want to vomit, except it's unlikely that I'll actually vomit. My stomach is growling and whining. I roll onto my side, wincing as my body lights up in 10 different locations. It's not just the injuries. My body generally feels old and worn out. I pause, blink slowly, consider the parts of my body I can see readily. The backs of my hands, my forearms. It's hard to consider the state of my skin when my body is streaked with grime and dirt. There are no mirrors in this room, no way to see my own reflection, no way to reassure myself that I am, in fact, my actual self. Amazing, the things a person can take for granted. I've never once paused to think about the sheer miracle that is a mirror. I have never once considered there might be a day when I would be desperate to see myself, only to realize I was lacking the necessary tools to do so. I close my eyes, try to cool down my overheating brain. Calm yourself, Natalie. Regroup. Think. My brain weakly oozes little darts of panic in response. "Mama?" I twitch at the sound. Lift my head off the pillow. Ouch! A headache pierces the back of my skull like a surgical needle. There's that little girl standing by the doorway. The same one who called for me earlier. She's wearing one of those strange pilgrim outfits, hair fully braided. My heart squeezes in a sort of heartsick revulsion, the kind I felt in the early days of postpartum with Clementine. That innate instinct to love a child, especially one who looks like you, coupled with the overwhelming desire to kill the needful thing, to bash its head in and run. The girl moves inside the room, her little hand trailing the wall. "It's Maeve, Mama," she says shyly. "It's me." Maeve, I echo groggily like some demented cavewoman. I love that name. It's always been on our list, ever since the very first child. With each of our girls we considered Maeve, but never found a soul who seemed to fully fit the bill. This little girl, though, is a perfect Maeve. Soft and watchful and sweet. I close my eyes, paw roughly through my thoughts. Mumble, "Where am I again?" "Home," she says immediately. She's staring at the floor now. She looks upset, or maybe disappointed. Like she's playing a game she doesn't want to play. A prickle of dread runs through me. A new thought rises to the surface, spiked with paranoia. She was trained to answer these questions. What day is it? She's been slowly creeping along the wall toward me as we talk, in an incremental shuffle that feels less intentional than instinctual, like she's magnetized by me, like she loves me, like my heart stutters a little bit, like I'm her mother. She kicks softly at the nightstand, flicks her gaze toward me, flicks it away when our eyes meet. Wednesday. My brain latches onto the information with such quick and immediate relief. This is a word we know. This is a day of the week where we are from, that it takes me a few moments to realize I can't remember what my last day was back home. What do I remember? Such a simple question, and yet it feels impossible to answer. I remember my mother and my sister. I remember marrying Caleb. I remember giving birth. I remember the email from Shannon. For the record, I don't think you're a bad person. Oh, and that hopeful look on my husband's face when he said, "It's time to run." "You're right, Mama," Maeve says. She's by the bed now. She hesitates, then steps closer, bringing a hand to my swollen face. I flinch and close my eyes, preparing for the shudder of pain. When nothing happens, I open my eyes. Her finger is hovering above my skin. She knows what a bruise is. She doesn't want to hurt me. "Hungry, Mama?" My stomach rumbles in response. "Yes, I admit. Very. Come to the kitchen. Come have a biscuit." I hesitate. "Where is your father? Your boss? That man?" "Out working," she says. "With Abel and Noah." Abel, Noah. Names as biblical as they come. How old is this girl? She looks like a 6 or 7-year-old, but she speaks like she's 3 or 4. For a shameful moment, I want to grab her by the shoulders and shake her little body until the truth comes sputtering out of her like vomit. When was I taken from my home? How long has it been? What happened to me? Are my children and husband looking for me right now? Are the toddlers having meltdowns? Is the baby screaming for me? The baby. My hand flies to my stomach. My little sea creature. The baby's gone. I'm not 6 months pregnant anymore. My mouth gapes open in a silent scream. Throughout my life, on so many different occasions, I've wondered with genuine curiosity how people were able to move through the world without faith. In college, I watched the girls in my hall so proudly emancipate themselves from every institution that shaped them. Their families, their country, their creator. They were insistent on snipping every last one of their tethers to the mortal universe. It was unfathomable to me, the idea of floating forward through the world, held up by absolutely nothing. What kept you from plummeting? As Maeve guides me down the hallway and back toward the kitchen, her little hand tightly gripping mine, I remind myself I'm not alone no matter how much it feels like it. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. I remind myself with more than a little bit of unease that nothing is accidental. Nothing in this world happens that is not a part of his plan. Visions of martyrs dance in my mind. Women burning alive, children losing their heads, so some man's faith might be restored. My hand drifts back to my stomach, and another wave of lightheadedness passes through me. I'm not some sacrifice, am I, Lord? The kitchen is quieter now. The 2 boys and the man are, as Maeve promised, nowhere to be seen. The older girl is bent over the kitchen table, her back to us. As we walk closer, I see her stirring something that looks like cake batter. She picks up the bowl and pours it carefully across a wooden grid, filling a dozen or so rectangle molds. And now, the case, mirror. The girl is making soap. I've done that before. It was one of the first tutorials I ever shared online, only a week or so after the blessed day my account went viral. That video was sloppy and boring. I recorded it in one long take, wrote a painfully trite caption, "Cleanliness is close to godliness," and uploaded it, then watched with abject horror as all of my new followers shredded it to pieces. Why is this chick even famous? This video is so out of focus. Lol, did someone accidentally lobotomize Martha Stewart? In the year following that moment, I made a dozen more soap-related videos, each one cleaner, and more well-executed than the one before. Before long, the praise outweighed the anger, and the anger itself shifted in tone from criticisms of the execution. Why is she even famous? To criticisms of the concepts inherent in the video. Who has time to make soap? When that happened, I knew I had won. Now Maeve drops my hand and runs over to the table, where she climbs into the chair next to her sister. "Mama wants a biscuit," she says. "Mama can wait until dinner," the older girl replies. Maeve is now distracted by the materials on the table, and so she doesn't answer, instead reaching for a small wooden bowl filled with lavender sprigs. She grabs a fistful and dumps the flowers unceremoniously over the center of the grid, so that half the molds are covered completely in purple, and the other ones are untouched. "You have to spread them evenly," the older girl says. "Let me show you." She takes her own fistful of sprigs and scatters them perfectly across the remaining untouched soap molds. I point at the lavender sprigs. "Who taught you to add the herbs?" The older girl turns to face me. "You did," she says calmly. "It was you. Drink this," my new college roommate commanded, and shoved a plastic cup into my hands. Her name was Rena Magliotti Tot. Standing before me in her branded jeans, with her branded headband and branded sneakers and branded t-shirt, she looked like a walking, talking directory for the nearest luxury mall. It was the first night of college. We were hosting a pre-game, the definition of which had been provided to me approximately 15 minutes earlier. I held the cup up, raising my voice to be heard over the rap music playing from the speakers on Rena's desk. "Is there alcohol in this?" "Don't worry," Rena said dismissively while she poured another cupful. "You won't taste a thing." I sniffed the cup, strawberry jam, and then blushed to the sound of laughter. A few girls were sitting on Rena's bed. They looked identical to the poster collage of models framed on the wall above. Modern, manicured, and just a little bit surly. "It's basically juice," one of them offered. The other girls snickered again. Neither had opted to sit on my bed. They hadn't even stepped over into my half of the room, which held the small handful of things I had brought from home. A hand-stitched quilt, a framed picture of my family, a desktop computer paid for by my scholarship. No posters on my side of the room. I nodded politely, though it was starting to bother me, the way these women refused to answer the questions I did ask, and pretended to hear questions I didn't ask. Still, my mother's voice bellowed through the hallways of my brain. "Be nice." Was it more important to the Lord that I abstain from alcohol, or get along with strangers? I took a sip. It was surprisingly sweet, less like juice, and more like syrup, not unlike the fake wine they offered out at church service each Sunday. I closed my eyes, then took a larger gulp from the cup, and then another, ignoring the girls as they laughed again, ignoring Rena's whoop of support. "Hell yeah, Rumi," as the juice dribbled down my chin and dripped onto the lace collar of my dress, leaving a spattering of blood drip stains that would never come out. The music was loud, louder than loud. How were so many young women capable of fitting into such a small room? Worse, they all kept talking over and around and past me. From what I could gather, these girls all knew each other already somehow. Friends of friends. Summer camp. Boarding school. Your dad went to? No way, my mom pledged. Across the room, Rena stood in a semicircle of women who all looked like misshapen clay versions of her, and were equally covered in the cursive scrawl of corporations. Standing together like that, they looked like a huddle of branded cows, freshly escaped from the hot iron poke. They were laughing, or screaming. The music, it was really so loud. And the floor, I couldn't see it. Could see only dozens of sneakered feet, moving and shifting like snakes. The floor was filled with snakes. These people were snakes. No! Silly. Sneakers. Not snakes. Was this what it felt like to be drunk? I wasn't drunk. No, not drunk. Well, maybe a little drunk. The room held the atmosphere of a jungle. Every few moments a gust of rank, warm air drifted past. It felt less like we were in a college dorm room, and more like we were standing inside some horrible monster's mouth. Monsters. Mouths. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they are born, speaking lies. Their poison is like the poison of a serpent. There it was, the lurch of panic. A tear rolled down my cheek. I was standing alongside, a group of girls who were all talking to one another simultaneously. A strange simulacrum of conversation that was clearly preventing any true exchange of information. One of them caught my eye, then leaned forward and said, "I like your hair." She gestured at my braid approvingly. "It's so long." At once, the torrential monologue ceased. All the girls were looking at me now. The pressure of their collective attention felt like a gravitational force. I resisted the urge to drop to my knees. "It's so healthy," another girl chimed in. They were all grinning at me now. Unnerving. Everyone I'd met so far at college had teeth so straight and white, they barely looked like teeth at all. "Have you ever cut it?" a third said, mimicking scissors. "Have you ever cut your hair?" Oh, that's what was happening here. These girls thought I was dumb. But how? I'd barely spoken enough to identify myself in a lineup, let alone to incriminate my intellect. I cast my gaze across our huddle, caught one girl frowning contemplatively at the juice-stained blouse of my prairie dress. She startled at my attention and looked quickly away. So that was it. My hair, my dress. It signified stupidity to them. Too late. I wiped my tear-stained cheek with the back of one palm and said shortly, "No, I've never cut it." "Woo," they said as one. A desperate, childlike loneliness fell over me. My free hand clenched into a fist. What I would have given to feel my mother's skirt fabric in my grip, for me to look up and see her kind, authoritative expression peering down at me. "Ready to go home, Natty?" "Yes, Mother. I'm ready to go home."
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.